I was like, my wife went off to go kind of kill some time for a little while. So, I mean, I'm open and my podcasts go longer than you guys sound like you do. So you just got to tell me probably to shut up more than anything.
Oh, no worries. Well, it is nice when the guest talks a lot. So feel free, even if you have questions for us, like, how do you feel about, you know what I mean? But,
yeah, absolutely.
Podcast,
no, it's like, yeah, it helps having done enough for a while to kind of know when to ramble and know each other. And like, especially even if Cognito, like I can see him on screen, he's got to like, because he lives in like, you guys may have heard, it's like he lives in like right by either a fire station and like not too far from a hospital, and the cops drive by him all the time. So he like sometimes will just have to mute, and he's got his hand up just like whirling a finger in a circle like sirens, and I'm just like sitting there vamping away, just killing time. So
yeah,
done that plenty. So
benefits of a video one for sure.
Yeah, you can't do that here. You're like typing away like, save me.
Yeah.
I mean, we could always get into the topic of 2 episodes ago for you. And I'll just say on the down low that I'm on your side.
Talking about the weapons discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
The retiring of weapons.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to episode 50 of the Guardian Hub podcast, where we talk Destiny and our love of the game. We bring on different guests and communities to learn about them, their experiences in Destiny, and discuss other topics. Your hosts, as always, are Kingsley, Mac, and Sin. Sin, how are you doing today for our lovely 50th episode?
Oh, quite magical, knowing that it's 50. It's Sunday. I haven't quit. I got, it's early time for recording. I got a bourbon in hand and excited for today's discussion and guest. How about you, Kingsley? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. And yes, we do have a lot to talk about, but we are going to focus on introducing our guest first, and then we'll see where this all goes, because we have a lot to talk about, but we're just going to have fun today. But our special guest for today is the one and only Ebontis. You may know him from the Last Word Destiny podcast and also from his streaming and YouTube channel. Ebontis, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you guys for having me. Always happy to be on and chat Destiny with people who are like-minded and who can ramble away about Destiny for usually far too long. So thank you guys for bringing me on.
No problem. Yes, you're in good company here. Thank you very much for coming on. I've heard of your podcast for a while, but unfortunately just really started to branch out and listen to it some more. There's actually a lot of Destiny podcasts. I don't know if you're aware.
There are so many.
Yeah,
it's
I'm sure you're aware.
Oh, yeah. No, it's one of those things that just is still always impressive to see this community be able to even foster enough, even if like half are for fun or some aren't that big. And, you got your big heavy hitters like DCP is the big one. I mean, they've been around forever and stuff, but still the amount of ones that are around there and stay around as long as they do, from you guys and us that we do ours, and there's so many. There's the Down Under, Destiny Unfiltered. I mean, and I'm not even naming them all. It's impressive that this community has fostered so many podcasts. Again, always just a nice treat to the community because, Destiny rocks.
Yeah. So tell me why you wanted to start a Destiny podcast. I mean, we all kind of have our reasons. What got you started thinking about let's do a Destiny podcast?
Yeah, so Cognito and Lord Cognito, he's part of the Iron Lords podcast. He's been doing his podcast for obviously longer than we have, but he's got his group. But I actually met him at Guardian Con. God, is that 4 years ago now? It's been a while. It was the second Guardian Con, I think, that actually existed. It's still at Tampa Fairgrounds. And he and I were the two that were like walking outside when everybody was in line. We were like passing out business cards. We kind of clicked because we were both doing the same thing. And we chatted up a little bit at Guardian Con, kind of connected there and just kind of stayed in touch for a little while. And then I have no idea why we felt like starting when we did, because it was during the Curse of Osiris, like the probably lowest of lows for Destiny 2. And we were like, hey, it seems like a good time to do a podcast and talk about it. Just, we knew we had the passion for the game. And I guess that's one of those things. People get angry about this game, but typically it's because they have passion for it. It's different. People don't get yelling and very emotional over things that they typically don't have any cares about. So we had talked a little bit back and forth, traded tweets and things, and kind of just got to chatting and worked on setting it up. And how it turned into what it is now is kind of cool. We had to change names at some point, mostly because like we figured out it used to be called Flashpoint. So the idea there was the fact that Flashpoint was, for one, it was the idea is it was meant to be short, and then we had an inside joke that Flashpoint was long point. So because it ended up being like a 2-hour podcast, sometimes we're like, this is not Flash. This is not a flash on the pan. This takes like forever. So kind of joked about names, and then we ended up like trying to find a play on words, but kind of open-ended to where like Last Word sounds like a podcast, but it's got the little tease to Destiny, and kind of went back and forth through names, but just kind of getting into it is just two people who are passionate about Destiny, and somehow, while not always the same, like I may eat my crayons and he may floof around as a warlock, but we still got plenty to talk about. So it's just been kind of a cool way to see two people who would never have met otherwise come together and can chat like 90 minutes each week about a game. So it's just been kind of luck more than anything, I would say.
Luck, nice. But I like what you said too about you were starting it during Curse of Osiris, and I have the same feeling too. Like even in probably one of the darkest days of Destiny 2, Curse of Osiris.
Yeah, we were crazy. I don't know what we were thinking.
Hey, but if you knew you still liked the game then, and I did too, then I know from experience now, like, okay, I'm going to like the game even in its lower times, so I can probably keep a podcast going, right? That's a good thing, right? So it's like, it's easy for someone to get excited about Destiny and start a podcast when things are really good, but to actually be interested when things are down a little bit, that's where it matters, in my opinion.
That's how things keep going for sure, too. If you can hold a conversation and hold the community and you have things you still love to do in the game, regardless of whether it's high or low, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been around Destiny long enough, you've had the highs, you've had the lows, you've had the content droughts, you've had double primaries. We've been through some stuff, to say the least, and keep it somewhat clean. But at this point, it seems like a lot of the patience is starting to build and pay off as we keep looking forward into the future. So it seems to only be looking brighter as we go forward.
Excellent. And your podcast is now on episode 93. So we were for a bit.
Yeah, we were creeping towards the hundo mark. So I mean, congratulations to you guys on 50 as well, because that's no slouch, because you're right at that year mark, unless you do them dead on every week, because we're just under the 2-year mark. So it's awesome for you guys as well.
Too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. And you have your podcast with Lord Cognito. I've obviously listened to several of the episodes. Great back and forth. I mean, obviously you talk about Destiny. You like to kind of go into all the points, deep dive into it. But what I really appreciate is you guys definitely know what you're talking about. And I mean, you could say, well, don't all the Destiny podcasts, but maybe just the way it's presented appeals to me. Like, oh, these are the points I wanted to hear about this week. So whatever you're doing, it's good.
Well, I appreciate that, because, I mean, there are tons of podcasts out there. And I was going to say, I forgot one of the biggest ones as well, is Fire Team Chat as well. And you can sit there and listen to any podcast that can be big, professional. Everybody's going to have their moments. And if you're listening to it, you're like, yeah, I know exactly what word you're trying to think of right now. Why can't you think of it, senior professional podcast person? But in that moment, if you're just a listener, you're like, yeah, sure. But when you're trying to say something, I've been like, and just blanking. And it's just those points where you're like, if you enjoy the format, you enjoy what we do, the moments where you definitely kind of have the mind farts that happen. Appreciate you guys getting through those with us.
No, that's awesome. And it's always fun having podcasts that stream live on Twitch also. So that's great. When I started this one, I was kind of like, I didn't know if I wanted to like deep dive into the news points and have like a live stream. But as it's gone, I've really appreciated interviewing guests, and things might change. But what I'm trying to say is I really appreciate the podcasts that do live stream on Twitch, and it gives me something to, it's fun seeing people's reactions. People can guess how Sin and I feel about what we're talking about based on our voice, right? But when I see
based on the inflection in our voice,
yeah, sure. But when I see like Lord Cognito like grimacing, like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like those are awesome. Those are like, yeah, we know how you really feel, right? Tell us about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the difference of the audio versus video. And we always started with video. I think we used to stream it to his channel and then just trying to switch over to, we tried to kind of stream to both, and that kind of got to be a little bit of work. And it's just a progression. We tried to like consolidate platforms. So like we send all of our tweets to one person, one place, so all the chats are together. But the live piece of that is, it's weird, but it's good. But you also have your moments of like, whether audio dies or you lose a guest for a minute, you can't just be like, oh, let's just go ahead and clip that out. It's like, no, we're live, guys. Sorry about that. And I've had my internet issues for a little while, so there's some downsides to being live. So trust me, I envy the audio only, especially when it comes to editing later on. Trust me.
Yeah. There's pluses and minuses either way. Of course, we've gotten to the point now where we're like, we don't care about editing as much. So it's like, maybe we might as well just do a live one down the road, right? Sam, just throw it together.
It's kind of fun.
It's more like me not caring as much about editing, because there is something, shout out to one of our previous guests for that, Dan Finity, said there is something a little more natural when you leave in the breaths and the pauses and the talking. And I used to be super picky about editing them. You want to make it more natural, and it makes the podcast feel natural or more alive. Humanize it more so.
Or and
depends on the perspective. If you're editing or just like talking and you're like, oh, I breathed there for a little while, cool. And the person on the other side's like just cringing. You're like, oh, I gotta edit this out. Right. Like we try and stay fairly clean. I've probably in the last couple weeks of frustration, if you guys have watched as well, I try really hard not to cuss. I was like, I'm not saying I don't ever do it in my real life, but if I'm like on stream, unless it's just late at night, or especially in videos, I try to keep it relatively clean. Sometimes things just happen, and when you're live, guess what? You get to hear the real person, and that's 100% true. If you're just like, the frustration comes out, or just the deep breath, and you're like, okay, we're going to get into this, like, you can get those real moments, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. I also want to hear about, you post videos on your YouTube channel. What got you into that? And you still enjoy doing that, I assume? I mean, you just put out a great longer one again today, so obviously you must.
Yeah, so the YouTube piece was kind of, I guess, a step of, I had a previous job for a while, took a break from doing that, mostly just to kind of mix up and do a couple of different things, and just, kind of as a place where I could try. And the biggest thing for me that I had been trying to do in Destiny is, I mean, I've been playing games for a long time, so little history, I've done things, I've played 8-bit Nintendo, all the way from there, Super Mario Brothers 3, all the way through World 8, without, like, when I was young, like Mega Man 3, just painful games. I enjoyed Dark Souls and stuff like that. So apparently I have a tendency to play things that are challenging, just to, like, push myself outside of my comfort zone, as opposed to just, like, easing through a story. I want, like, the experience of, like, all the pieces of it. So I'm not going to claim to be the best, because there's people who speedrun those games that make me look like a schmuck, but I still enjoy the challenge. But those challenges kind of were something I was looking for in Destiny. And then sometimes as you went through, if you had like a group of 3, a basic strike, or a story mission, wasn't ever going to push you that far. And there's also a lot of people in this game who don't have other people to play with. That was probably the biggest thing I've ever seen in this game, is there are a lot of group activities. It's always the question, is it match made? Is it not? Which is still a question to this day, which could be debated. But even if it's not match made, is it something in there that you want? Is there a reward behind it? Is it something you think you want to try and do? And that's where a lot of my videos started from, where I would do weekly resets and I would do Xur videos, which still do the Xur because it's just there. But it was the Nightfall solo challenges were my big thing that I started. And I was trying to do them on different classes and give people variety. But as opposed to a lot that would say, hey, here's this thing and here's the text description of what you should do and you can watch me play. Or, hey, here's this recording and I'm going to voice over. Here's the clip of how to handle this room. Here's some tips for the boss. I truly wanted to, in one take, which is never easy. I can't tell you how many times I replayed strikes in Destiny 1, to go through and basically make a guide, start to finish, talking while I did it, to explain, this is what's going on. Here's this boss. Like the Shield Brothers is one. I don't know why that one always sticks out in my head as one that I know the most. Because Shield Brothers, I could say, okay, so I need to do about 180 to 190,000 damage. Then I'll send that first boss out of the room. I know the ads are going to spawn from this door. I'll rocket them, turn around, have the guys. I mean, I had played enough where I could actually sit there and explain that while I'm playing. And people always joked that I was like very calm while chaos was going on. And it was mostly just because I had done it so much. I knew what to expect. I just had to put a good run together. But my goal was just to try and develop a channel for people who either don't have others to play with, who are struggling to work through specific content. And even if somebody wants to play as a fire team of 3, hopefully my guide can give them as much information as they can. So when they do face that challenge, they're as well equipped as possible. So it was mostly just a way to get guides out there for people who may not think they could ever even solo something. But if they're well informed enough and I can show them that I can do it while talking to them, give them the load explanations and why I do it, hopefully others could too. That was the goal to the channel from the beginning, at least. It's kind of evolved, but that's where it started.
Oh, that's awesome. Well appreciated videos. So everything you mentioned, yeah, it's true about people can watch these and gain information. I've thought I should have almost made a video recently because Sin has asked me 10 times now, what are the weapon rolls we're looking for from the sundial?
There are a lot of God roll videos out there, and I even debated on that, but I was like, kind of running out of time for this season. But those are what, Fallout does them. There are a lot of God roll videos out there, and some people like certain people's perspective. So if you think you ever want to do one, because even if I do one, 6 other people may do it well. Everybody's opinion works for different people.
But I love the videos, like you mentioned, on strikes, nightfalls, doing like whisper missions, all these little PvE type things. I have aspirations to have little segments on the podcast, but we're always just so busy interviewing guests. But I'm like, okay, this week we're going to give tips on how to do this in the raid, and I may still get there. But that's what appeals to me. Again, I'm a very much PvE player, and seen from the beginning of Shadowkeep where these 980 nightfalls were super hard to these days where they're really not too hard if everyone's leveled up and you bring in the right weapons. If anything, they might take a little longer, but it's such an enjoyable content thing to come together as a team, or yes, do it solo. But I love these team-based activities and knowing what people should bring and come into these. Okay, we're doing Pyramidion. Okay, let's bring this, and just make it a little bit more doable so people don't have to. I guess what I'm trying to say is because I hate for people that maybe haven't played the game as much to feel frustrated with things in the game. That's like, oh, this is too hard. Well, it doesn't have to be hard if you just know this, and this. I want your experience in the game to be enjoyable, so you enjoy it as much as I do, right?
Right, so, absolutely. And
I can see why those videos help.
Yeah, like anything. When you talk about a 980 Nightfall, the first time you face it, you're like, I don't even know where the champion's going to be, what I'm going to face, what shields they've got. I go through and it's a learning experience for multiple times through. So then when you turn around and you're able to give people, hey, you probably want to make sure you bring this arc thing for this shielded guy in the end. Or if you say the Pyramidion, I can like that one I know way too well. So you're like, in the end, I know you've got arc harpies. So you want to make sure if you're going to a Nightfall, you got an arc weapon to deal with the harpies. You want to make sure you don't try and nuke the boss too fast if you can't kill him, because then he wanders around and he's invincible. Like certain things like people don't know and can make those experiences much worse. So just those little nuggets of information, even if it was like, hey, don't nuke the boss. You need something arc damage. You got void in here. Bring this loadout with you. And then at least you got to learn where the champions and stuff are, but you could go in as opposed to, hey, I've got my sword and I'm running a solar subclass and I'm screwed. Like that's not going to benefit you very much. So even just the little bits like you're saying, those would be huge.
Yeah. We need to get some more 980s with you, Sin, some Nightfalls, and get you some golf balls.
Oh, the golf balls. Hopefully they'll be coming from trials too. Just got to wait and see if that actually happens.
Oh, yes.
They need that on the other side because they have been a little isolated for a while.
Tell me about Destiny real quick. Like, are you kind of a D1, day one player, or what got you into Destiny?
Destiny 1 alpha player. So I've been around since literally pre-day one. So day 0 or whatever you want to call that one. So I've been playing since. I've got buddies of mine that I've played games with over the years from World of Warcraft and Halo. And I've never been like a competitive shooter. Hence why I'm probably not so much on the PvP beast mode. I'm okay. Not going to claim anything higher than that. But the PvE aspect coming from games like Diablo and World of Warcraft and RPGs. And Chrono Trigger is like my favorite game of all time. So still got an RPG wheelhouse in the back of my head running around. So the combination of shooting, Bungie that made Halo, having RPG and loot mechanics and all of that combined was just very intriguing from the beginning. And while it's had its ups and downs, they've done something special in they basically built the looter shooter, which people have tried to copy, but they're still the one doing it best.
Do you feel like Titan's your main, or do you kind of go even across characters?
Titan is where I've leaned for a long time, I would probably say. First year of Destiny was straight up Hunter almost the whole time. Like, I barely played the other two, probably had him in a mix for raid runs, but I mostly played my Hunter. And then the major shift happened for me to, I guess I ate too many crayons in Taken King, because it was mostly the hammer that took me over. So the throwing hammer, which was busted when it came out, it finally got nerfed down to be reasonable. But just the feeling of throwing the hammer has always felt satisfying to me, I guess. Maybe just psychological, who knows? But the Titan has kind of kept me. And then as a Titan, you had roles of you could do some damage, or you could be the bubble guy, and kind of still felt like you had a use, because even in World of Warcraft as an example, I ended up playing either healer or tank because everybody wants to play DPS. So I was like, okay, I'll be one of the other ones. Titan felt kind of like that somewhat, so it seemed fitting.
Yeah. And so that's cool. Alpha and Destiny 1, and then obviously all the way through now. We already kind of talked about this, but it sounds like you've played the game all the way through. Were there ever points, Curse of Osiris, points in D1 where you're like, ooh, I don't know where this game is going, I'm contemplating doing something else more, or are you always kind of like Destiny was your main game?
I wish I could say Destiny wasn't my main game and I took breaks, because there's plenty of games I've missed. But I would definitely, there's things like Breath of the Wild that I want to actually sit down and play through, but I'm like, when do I have 100 hours when trying to cover this crazy game? So a lot of my time has been spent in Destiny. Now, there's certain ones that have pulled me away. Things like God of War, I picked it up, couldn't put it down. So there are certain experiences that have been epic to a point of like, yeah, there's a break here in Destiny. This is coming out. It doesn't matter. Like, even if I got to cover like the news of the week, then I'm going to turn God of War back on. There's certain ones that have pulled me away, but generally I've been playing Destiny fairly consistently most of the time. There have been some, like even this season, I honestly would say this has probably been a more casual season for me in a while, just between work and trying to be, a little more social in real life and those types of things. And this season has kind of allowed for that. I've still focused mainly on this versus other things. So it's been my, I don't even know. My wife jokes with me. I get it. I was like, my wife jokes with me now. She's like, you're mistress of Destiny. So yeah, it's there.
Right?
That's a common theme.
Yeah. Sin and I are the same way. I get it. It's like, not playing the game for a while means maybe like logging in once a week and not doing anything else. But it's not like we're stepping away from the game like a month or two at a time. Yeah, it's kind of, I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's never been a big break. It's always been a part of what I've been playing since it released, one way or the other.
Well, that's why we love talking about it, right?
Yeah. You play it this long, you're like, okay, I could talk about it for way too long. It's normal.
I think we've stepped away a few times. Borderlands 3, when that came out, I just downloaded what's the the
Everyone's
game in DC.
Division 2 right now.
Division 2, yes. It was $3. It was $3 the other day. Or
yep.
I don't know if it still is, but I know they were on
through March 3rd. So, but yeah, it was
before the expansion. So that was, I picked it up and played a couple minutes into it, but honestly, there are a few experiences here and there. And then what ends up happening, I get home at night from work. I sit down. Oh, crap. I'm not at level 100 for my season pass. Okay, I'm logging in just like I did last night and finishing off the seasonal quest or the seasonal track. But there is so much to do in the game. It is definitely the mistress.
Yeah, it's definitely going to suck up some time. So you almost have to force yourself to pull away and be like, hey, I want to go play this thing. Can I squeeze it in? Or at least maybe this week's a little lighter, but I can't. I feel like I can't completely neglect Destiny because there's always more coming. It's kind of one of those.
And then another question I have is rewards aside, like forget if you get good rewards or not. What is your favorite stuff to do in the game right now or historically?
For Destiny 1, it was a lot of the Nightfalls because those were a good challenge. They felt Destiny 2, when it switched to Nightfalls, was one of those, it seemed like the time was working against you and the points were counting down and stuff like that. And Destiny 1 just felt like more, you just got to try and finish it. Like it seemed in a different way that I could still do it. So I had fallen off a little bit on Destiny 2 Nightfalls. But honestly, one of my favorite things they've added since, I would say, my top is the dungeons. The dungeons for me have been amazing. Shattered Throne, when I solo flawless that one, and I did it later than a lot of people, but it was still just, those are the fun feats for me. It takes back to, take a Dark Souls. Yeah, you have like your crazy self, you alone, die, you got to reset half this entire run. Yeah, it's like those, the dungeons have been absolutely stellar. And then the exotic quests of similar nature, Whisper the Worm, those type, all of those have been some of my favorite additions. And while they're not that common, man, when they show up, they're amazing.
Oh yeah. And we have, dungeons and the other exotic missions, Whisper, Outbreak, man, some of the best content. And I hope something's coming up soon this season or next. We will see.
Yeah, I would like to see. Yeah, I'd like to see another one of those. Hopefully coming in this year. If not, like, always wonder how much time they have to develop everything. But yeah, those can never come up enough because they're amazing.
Excellent. Well, before we get into some other topics, I just thought of this right now, and a lot of people are talking about what's coming up, but I wanted to quickly go over our opinions on this last season, what we would rate it. We can do like a 1 through 10 or A, B, C, D scale, whatever. And I'll let you start first, Sen, and then I'll let Ebontis go, and I'll go last. But just basic impressions of the season, how we liked it overall.
Overall, let's if we're going with a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate it probably a 7 overall. I thought overall it was really good as far as the overall content. I really enjoyed the whole Saint 14 Quarters of Time thing. I thought that was interesting to watch, but it did leave for me a little bit more to desire. For a participation standpoint, a lot of that happened while I was actually working. And for most of the community participating, it was just running in and going and getting pictures and setting them into a team to basically build the overall puzzle. I thought that could have been a little bit more. Overall, I thought it was still a great way for the community to come together. And there really wasn't a lot for me to grind for this season. The exotic quests, because we're talking about exotic quests just a few moments ago, like the Outbreaks and the Whispers, those were fun to get into. The exotic quest lines that we really got this season tied to the Quarters of Time, which you could do after everybody figured it out. And then there was the one other one where you went into a Crucible map and scanned frames. Those were very light. They didn't require really a lot of grind to get to them.
Yeah, the Devil's Ruin.
Yep. So the experience is good. Just I think they missed it in a few points.
Cool. Ebontis, how do you feel about this previous season that we're coming to close out?
I'm literally sitting there thinking about doing this video tomorrow too. I've literally got my notes. I tried to type up everything that was basically just available this season to kind of get my head around stuff. And as I think everybody's probably going to be on a similar page, but there are certain pieces to this season which were really well done. The Saint 14 quests were awesome. Those were cool experiences. Quarters of Time brought the community together in a great way. Not everybody felt like they could be involved, but it was a cool puzzle. But on the other side, the reward being on the calendar, that whole debacle. Ritual weapons, which I was like, oh yeah, those exist. So we had Buzzard and Komodo and Python, which isn't terrible. Got a few new perks. We had the Dawning, we had Crimson Days, ups and downs there. I mean, I think I'm probably in the same boat, somewhere in the 6 to 7 range. I'm not going to say it's a bad season. As even Luke Smith said, he's like, I think our winter season was pretty good. And I enjoyed it. Like, the lore that you get in the Devil's Ruin quest is just, you sit there and listen to two guys talk for like, and then a couple others bump in, and you're like, I'm sitting here listening to commentary for like 200 seconds, and I'm just waiting to see if there's more. Like, that was great. And I would love more pieces like that. But then on the other side, there's stuff like Buzzard and Komodo, which you just want to pull your hair out, or it's way too easy and doesn't really matter. So this seems to be a season of ups and downs as opposed to just kind of a steady pace through it, I guess the way some of the others have had. Sundial itself has been cool. I will say I did appreciate at least some evolution from Vex Offensive to Sundial, because Vex Offensive was same damn thing for 3 months. It wasn't a lot of variety. Even the boss was just a different thing. But this one, we at least had different boss mechanics. We had the 3 different rooms. You might not always face them all. And then especially when we got to Enotum, you had the Voltron boss in the different room. So it's a step up, I would say. But I mean, that 6 to 7 range, if I'm going to be particular, is probably where I would fall to, just because things hit and things didn't. And I can't ignore the things that didn't land for me.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we're all kind of on the same page. I'd have to do it right around a 7 also. Coming into the season and the first couple weeks in, never minding the Saint 14 missions, which were awesome, but I was thinking, oh, this might be a pretty light season, 5 or 6 if I had to rate it back then. But then more things came. We found out how easy it was to get these, grind out the weapon rolls. The corridors of time, even though the end goal might not have been amazing, it was still fun to watch. Doing the Legend Sundial, just by the time I've gotten to the end of the season now, I'd say maybe a 7. There was definitely ups and downs, like you say, and overall, I would say I've been happy with this season. I don't know if I'd say, yeah, it's great, it's awesome, 8, 9, or 10, but yeah, I think we're all kind of feeling that way. Not a bad season for $10 for sure. We've always said, and I believe you guys have said this too, like, yeah, $10 well worth it. No one can argue that, right?
Yeah, right. Like the value is there for what you get. It's just, for one, Destiny community is entirely spoiled. Like, we never will get enough content, so that's not going to change too much. But I also like if I can like pull some of the silver linings, like, hey, some things didn't land exactly well, or Corridors of Time was, the big streamer thing, or however you have your view. There are things that we see hopefully continue to evolve forward. Like the way the obelisks were done, I would love to see more vendors have a situation or a setup kind of like the obelisk. Like, spend some time on the obelisk, whatever you do, whether it be bounties or just killing things on whatever said planet is, or in strikes for, say, Zavala, and you can level them up and unlock perks and mods that last for a while. Those are things I would really like to see them take, because that obelisk mod, I really would like, I think could almost work for faction rallies. Like, doesn't have to be a big deal, but they're a vendor. You could kind of, claim to one for a while and level them up and have just a few things that come from them. And the ideas of stuff, I always see them like try this idea, and then I wonder, I'm like, am I going to see this thing in like a year just in an evolution? Because everything in Destiny goes somewhat slow. But little things like that just are kind of the pieces that give me probably the bump up in the scores. You guys say like that 7 feels about right, because obelisks and a little bit of perks here and the evolution of the story. So things are moving in a good direction if they start building on it.
And it sounds like they are, and hopefully they will continue to, with these seasons are blending together a little bit better, and some cool story beats are coming forward. So one of the big things I wanted to talk about today is a fun discussion that we've talked about a little bit last week in our podcast, but I wanted to talk about some more because see how our feelings have progressed over time. And I know you guys have talked about it on your podcast, but the lovely discussion about Luke Smith saying that he wants to sunset weapons. Well, to be more specific, legendary weapons, because from what we heard, we would keep exotics. So we do want to clarify that.
Yep.
And it seems like what's even more interesting on this point was I was viewing stuff on Twitter about, I think it was a guy named Kevin saying, wow, Ebontis, you guys talked about this, and now Luke Smith's talking about it. This is crazy.
Yeah, that timing was bonkers, by the way, because I joked about it the week before he put it out, and then it comes out, and I'm literally tweeting or like even texting Cognito, and I'm just like, I'm reading pieces, and I'm like, oh, this might actually be happening, because he teased it in the top, talked about it later. I was like, oh, is this actually going to happen? And then I read it, and I was like, oh my God. So no, the timing was amazing, but it's a very, very divisive discussion. So before I've said anything, because God knows I've talked about it way too much, because our podcast has touched on a couple times.
True, yeah.
I am curious your guys' thoughts on it, just because I haven't heard yours, to see what you guys think about this, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And if you don't mind, Sin, we'll start with you, because I know it was kind of dropped as a bombshell to you the last week. You hadn't heard about it yet, and now you've thought about it more. I've even seen you post some things on Twitter. So what are your basic thoughts? And then I'll go next before we switch it back to Ebontis.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of being able to listen to quite a few perspectives since the drop of it. Again, unfortunately, with my hectic work schedule and where I'm working now, I've been a little disconnected during the day, more so than I should have. But after listening to different perspectives and views, reflecting on really my play style more recently, I used to be the guy that was stuck on using the same thing over and over. And that was great when the encounters don't change and everything is stale and stagnant. Using the same thing over and over because you're comfortable with it is cool. You right? To take Lord Cognito aside from one of the last word podcasts, you spent all that time getting Whisper. You want to use it. I get that. Mm-hmm. But now with the changes they've made, it's very inefficient. That's why Izanagi's has been the top dog recently. But when the new content comes out and the power level changes and these new weapons come out and the next round of patches goes out, that whole perspective and even thinking past that with the artifact and what could come out with these artifact mods and when all these changes come out, the playstyle is going to change. Instead of using, let's say this season, it was scout rifles was really the big thing with the mods for these champions.
Yeah, that was one of the options.
And it changes to something else next season. Now you might have to look at whatever is good for that particular slot. Now you might not be able to use Izanagi's. Maybe you have to use an exotic in the secondary slot. Or, I go back and forth using still the Iron Banner rocket launcher, not the rocket launcher, the grenade launcher.
Oh, Swarm of the Raven. Yeah.
Swarm of the Raven. I finally got a good roll. It took me many seasons to get a good roll on that. The one with the these are the spike nades, the brain malfunctions that I'm having today.
Yep. No, you're good.
And then
it's that bourbon, by the way.
It's the bourbon, and I'm just sipping on it. So you got the spike nades. You have the line in the sand, which is pretty good. Now you have Izanagi's. There's plenty of options to do DPS, especially on the final bosses and a lot of these raids. When the season changes and more stuff comes out, and those things change. My style, I've been switching weapons a lot more now than I have in recent history. First year of Destiny 2, I found something, I liked it, I kept it. The last year, I've been changing up what I've been using. I've been using more scouts, I've been using more autos. I used to only use pulses. Now that's all gone by the wayside. I'm switching up how I play in different activities, and especially when we're grinding for all of these quests that are out there. When you need grenade launchers for catalysts like Fighting Lion. I was grinding Fighting Lion catalyst for a while, so I was using that for quite some time. Or you have to use linears and Crucible for the Komodo. There's a lot of reasons to change up playstyle that I am not set on keeping the same thing throughout the next 1 to 3 to 1 to 5 years of Destiny 2. I'm excited for the next thing to come out, and I think that's great, because then we don't get stuck in doing the same stale thing over and over. So I'm actually excited that they can actually sunset some of the weapon choices, and it brings life to new and more exciting guns or weapons in the future.
Nice. I'm similar. When I read this right away, and you can call me a Bungie apologist, because I tend to often agree with whatever they're saying is coming out. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times where I disagree a little bit, but I've never usually okay, I'm willing to give this a try. Let's see where we're going. And since some people have already been talking about it and the way they described it made sense to me. Look, I'm a realist. I'm looking at what they're saying, and I'm like, yeah, I wasn't really using some of these weapons anyways. And I, like what Sin said, sometimes I've been pigeonholed into working with weapons that I like, just staying on loaded questions and anarchy or whatever. But this season I've been trying more and more. Anyone who knows me, I've been rocking Telesto tons. It's just a joke, but I've been rocking more sidearms, even just different weapons I wouldn't normally do. And I'm looking at this as like a realist, as long as they're coming out with new things that are good, and it seems like I'm trying more of these weapons each season, then I don't really want the older weapons to even be an option, because it's overwhelming to me. It's like, I don't want to have to be thinking in the back of my mind, yes, I got 10,000 weapons in my vault, and do I need to be this new activity came out and it has these type of modifiers. Do I want to be going through all 10,000 of my weapons to see which ones are appropriate? No. Okay, I'll wait for the videos to see which ones to use. Okay. But just having these weapons, maybe still available, as we know that they're planning on doing, but not being able to level up, to me seems like a good thing, because there's less to worry about. And the time frame, I want to discuss that a little bit more, if that seems like an appropriate amount of time. But I like the idea, actually. I kind of liked it the second it came out. And Ebontis, how do you feel?
If you guys have listened to Last Word, I'm biased already coming into this discussion because they know what I'm going to say. But in turn, I've heard a couple different perspectives too. And even when we had Bob Azard on ours this past few days ago, he mentioned one of those things that was actually a kind of a good clarification point. I mean, my joke has always been, it's like, hey, do you want to use Whisper the Worm if, Destiny 2 lasts up until year 7, or they're able to, completely shift Destiny 2, still call it Destiny 2, not 3, and keep some of these things around. It's like the year 7 raid, and I use that as an extreme example because Destiny 2 is probably not going to last that long, which we argued about too. But I was like, should I still be able to pull Whisper from a year 1 exotic mission into a year 7? To me, that seemed ridiculous. But then on the other side, it was also, he mentioned that it's like, hey, I don't have 1,000 voices. And I'm like, technically, I don't either. Still don't even have that damn thing. And it's the idea of, well, what if a new raid comes out and that's the best thing to use, but, there's no way to get it? Do you still need to go back and run that content from 3 years ago that most people aren't going to want to potentially find a group for, just to bring something new forward so you can be the most optimal? And if it was just you were able to use more of the somewhat current stuff to be able to tackle the same activity, kind of gives things, it does sunset old things, but it allows some people who are newer players as well not to feel like they have to go play old stuff just to be current and new stuff. And I think that was actually another perspective I hadn't thought of. So for me, I support it. I mean, as I said, my background before, World of Warcraft, Diablo, new expansions come out, new seasons come out. I mean, a season in World of Warcraft might have been 2 years, but, they change the world. You go from level 60 to level 70, which is a bigger deal in that one than this one. But that's like going in Destiny from like 1100 to 1500. It's a huge jump. So you could have spent a year and a half grinding out the 40-person raid, getting this cool thing, going through a quest that is absolutely bonkers. And yeah, when the new expansion comes out, all that stuff is gone. So it's something I'm used to. But also, as Cognito raised a good point, and he even says it, the guns in Destiny are unique. They are, and we get attached to them. We all do. I have my Go figure. I get crap about it all the time because I have 46,000 kills with that thing. And I'm not the highest, but obviously I've used it a lot. And it's a crutch because I got a good roll and it feels good to me. But if there was a point where that was just not going to keep coming forward, I would have to dig around, see if I find a new pulse rifle that feels good. And I've got a Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip pulse rifle. And I'm like, why am I not using this thing? Because I still have my good old Outlaw Rampage Go figure that I'm just comfortable with. And it's the comfort of one thing that I probably can be like, I can keep pulling it forward, even if it shouldn't be there and may not be as shiny as the new thing. It's the comfort where I'm like, hey, it works. I know. Cool. I'll do it. And I don't have to worry, look at, or dig around in my vault, which is always full, for new guns. So it's a way, and not everybody may have that problem. People may be like, hey, it's the new season. I got a couple new weapons, pulled out the new one. And they may want to be able to always go back to those old ones. But if you have the opportunity, then there's always the risk of them, as they mentioned, getting power creep in there. And it's not the power creep of always making something powerful. It's the point of saturation power creep where they can't make anything stand out because everything has a spot and nothing is a master. It's a jack of all trades and each thing has its tiny little niche as opposed to things actually standing out and being cool. So I support it in multiple different ways, but it has been good to kind of see different perspectives. And it's like my biggest video of all time is Whisper of the Worm, hence why Cognito pokes at me about that one, because that is a special weapon to me because I lived in that mission. It's like that video is stupid big for me, and it's like that will always have a special place, but also it's, nothing's going to last forever. And in turn, at some point, it probably does need to we need to move on from some things. And for Bungie's sake, if they keep making cool stuff, but we don't have the incentive to, or even like a force of checking out new stuff, the time they spend on these weapons, which have their own unique sounds and different feels and start to I don't know why I've said the Scavelock in Destiny 2, year 1, that weapon for me felt like it was supposed to feel. Can't explain why in my head. You guys know which gun I'm talking about? Just the auto rifle?
Yes.
I don't know why that weapon for me always sticks out as like a cool D1 weapon. It had kind of a military sound and feel, kind of bounced a little bit, but it just felt like it was supposed to. And Bungie does that with so many weapons where I pick up this thing and I was like, hey, this Dreaming City pulse rifle has this unique sound and firing pattern and animation. And there's so many things you do get attached to, but if you get too attached, they can't get you to try anything else, I think is the issue. So I mean, obviously I support it as I ramble on here for way too long, but I've liked seeing the different perspectives. I like seeing Bungie talk about the whys of like, hey, we have way too many of all these things. I mean, the magic card example he said of we have an entire deck of magic cards, but you can always play with all of them forever, and there's never a rule set that takes anything out. It's like, well, then at some point this gets to be a little weird, ridiculous, or just way too complicated. And they want to be able to continue to build things that intrigue us, which is hard to do when you have stuff sitting out there that's already been intriguing for a while.
Right.
Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
No, I was also going to say congrats on the 1.4 million views on the Whisper solo. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's the YouTube gods and many other things shining on a fluke of things that happened. That was just one of those. People had done Whisper of the Worm when it came out. I did that video substantially later, I think, than others had done, but it was when there was no ammo that you could get at a time. It was kind of broken, and it was going into a new season, and I guess it was just fresh enough, and somehow all the algorithms picked it. So I'm not going to claim a lot. It was a fun video to make, and I think it's a pretty good guide, but I will happily appreciate all the luck that happened to get that one where it is.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
No, that's awesome.
Still fantastic. Absolutely.
It still blows me away when I look at it. So
yeah. On the exotic discussion, I get how they are going to say, okay, exotics won't be phasing out. You can still infuse them. But in a way, I'd almost say, well, why not double down on this? Like exotics, here's the thing. You can only run one exotic weapon, on the left side and one exotic armor on the right side. So they're already making it. There's too many. I already say there's exotic fatigue. There's so many exotics that I never run because there's too many to pick from. So I would almost be okay too if they start phasing out exotics and bring some new ones in.
And Cognito just exploded.
Sorry, Cognito.
No, I mean, and that's the harder debate because people do get attached to exotics, be it Whisper for me, be it, say Outbreak Perfected. Somebody went through and slogged away on that one, or you do get your Anarchy or 1,000 Voices after 100 raids. How do you take that away from somebody who's put that much time in, but in turn, when you're like, hey, that thing's like 3 years old now, are you sure you still want to keep using it? And they're like, yes, I love this gun. I have to live on it. Like, I feel like there's kind of a joke there from Iron Man to Spider-Man. It's like, if you're not who you are without the armor, you shouldn't have it in the first place. Like, bad example, but it's one of those, it's like, if you feel like that is the only thing you really want to use, how are they going to make something that's going to pull you away from that? Because even for the Whisper example, you've got Whisper, you've got Darcy, and I'm trying to think of other snipers that are exotic, and there's only so many ways they can twist things and obviously make things different. But how many ways can you make an exotic rocket launcher? We've got tracking, we've got now Deathbringer, which is cool, shoots out above, and you've got Wardcliff Coil. But I'm like, give me another exotic rocket launcher. Okay, you got Two-Tailed Fox, it fires 2. You have 4 different exotic rocket launchers that feel different to them. How do they put a 5th exotic rocket launcher in there? Now, it's all on Bungie to continue to be creative and innovative, but at a point, they can only mix up so much stuff without trying to, retire some, combine a couple things. It's just, it is going to get hard for them to really start making stuff creative because, as you said, exotic fatigue, how many things do you actually use from your exotic vault that's already not being touched anyway?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. They're giving us lots of notice too. So it's not like they're saying, oh, by the way, next week, Whisper's being retired. So those who ran it last week, oh, well, but they're saying, well, first of all, they're not getting rid of exotics anyways. This was just a hypothetical theory discussion, right? But even with the legendaries, they're going to say, 9 to 15 months. I assume, the devil's in the details, but I assume what's going to happen is when they start implementing this, we'll get some seasonal notice. Okay, 3 months from now, these weapons will be retired. So that's your warning. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, you also mentioned one thing, Ebontis, about maybe you ran 100 times to get the 1K voices. Unfortunately, in my case, it took me 1 run. So I'm not in the same boat that everybody else was with the...
Well, you are lucky, so enjoy that little bit of RNG, because I'm sure it doesn't happen all the time.
Anarchy, I got my second run. Now, in my defense, I still
there are people who hate you right now, by the way.
There is.
Good luck
this
with
is
that.
Always a funny discussion.
I still haven't gotten Teraba, so I am on the short end of the stick on that one.
That one's not as valuable, so you're probably okay.
Right. Yeah.
But that was the only luck or RNG I've ever had. The other, legendary stuff, the shotgun from Escalation Protocol, that one took me forever to get.
I'm with you on that one. Yep.
The Swarm of the Raven, the role that everybody was looking for, it took me forever to get that. I just happened to have a very, very good luck with those exotics.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the hard thing. So picture anything for you that has been that really hard grind. Some people want the curated, what is that one called?
Mindbenders, if you're going for that one.
Well, Mindbenders is one. That's a huge one. And that's
Spare
like
Rations is another.
Spare Rations is another. I checked my vault when Spare Rations became popular. I was like, oh, I have a good one. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like, that was one of those I just again, tripped over in my vault because I'm a hoarder and sometimes it pays off. But yeah, what is it? I have a rapid hit, rangefinder, ricochet rounds, full bore with a range masterwork. People are like, I hate you. I didn't even try for that one. It was in there from just doing random drifter season stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. Seems like I should keep this one. And sure enough, it was. But there are certain ones that have been absolute struggles for people to go for. And Bob Hazard, who was on our podcast, was basically just saying, hey, this thing, say, 1,000 voices. At some point, they may retire Last Wish as a raid, and you just straight up can't get it anymore. It's like 3 years later, the raid's done, or the Dreaming City gets fixed. What if they actually move the story forward and they fix the Dreaming City? There's no more raid to go through because in a lore sense, it doesn't make sense for it to even be there. Other things have happened there and you can't go get it anymore. Are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah, I missed it. And that's just different mentalities, because not everybody's going to be like, well, there was this gun, I really want to go get it. And you're like, dude, it's 4 years old. Are you sure? Yes, I really want to. And other people aren't going to care. And that's where I don't have a good explanation of how to tell somebody, be like, yeah, you're probably just not going to be able to get this thing. Because some people want to collect everything that has ever existed in the game, and it may just not be possible. And it's just, I don't want to say like tough love, but I don't have a great answer or explanation as to why. But I know at some point this has got to happen for them. Because as they said, if they want to change the world of Destiny, like, hey, say the Leviathan swallows Nessus, or the Dreaming City loop gets fixed and Shattered Throne is gone. That was his question to me. What if they fix the loop in the dungeon or in Dreaming City and Shattered Throne goes away and I can never run that dungeon again? I was like, oh. But how long's it been there? So I don't know. It's tough on both sides, and I get it, but I think for Bungie's sake to evolve Destiny and give us things that we might care about, I think it is kind of a necessary evil, personally.
So you're saying they should take away all our weapons. I heard it here, folks. Ebontis said, Bungie, take away all our weapons.
Hey, I didn't know Cognito was on this podcast. Damn.
We're just going to restart Destiny 2 all over again.
Yeah, blow up the tower for the third time.
And that was actually kind of refreshing to me, too. I mean, I don't want them doing this once a year or anything, but again, I kind of get like this, I don't care as much about collecting everything. I mean, I try to get all the good stuff, but when Destiny 2 started fresh, it was kind of like actually like a load off my shoulders. Like, I don't have to weapon or worry about all this anymore. I'm just starting fresh. So that's just more my mentality. I'm fine with them taking stuff away. Yes, if they take away some of the ones I enjoy a lot, Loaded Questions, Telesto, these certain things, whatever. I'll be a little disappointed, but I'll survive. I like the game enough.
What about you, Sin? Any final thoughts, since I think I beat that topic to death?
Yeah.
We can keep beating it if you want. I mean, I'm okay with taking it all away. Obviously, I have weapons right now. I was just looking at Dim and looking over my vault. I have 470 in my vault right now. That's not including the almost full every single other character space that I have, and even stuff in Postmaster. And I don't use a majority of them. I have ones that I've locked that I'll go back and use if I need them for a certain encounter. But for the most part, I'm using the same stuff. I'm just alternating between them for whatever I need them for. So, to me, let's blow it all up, take them all away, let's start over. I mean, retiring weapons to me is a way for them to reset the game without having to build a new game. So let's do it.
Yeah, no one uses all these. Remember when we were at the end of year one, holding on to both a solar arc and void of the EP
Oh
shotgun,
my God, yes.
and a solar arc and void of positive outlook, and a solar arc and void of like all these good weapons. Like, for what was that worth it? Like, I never pull them out anymore.
Nope.
Right.
Melted. All melted
Yep.
now.
All gone. Yeah, I've been going through and slowly just deleting stuff because, again, I'm a hoarder the same way. Every slot and every character is just stupidly packed. So for me, I even have I still have my Invader set. I have my Notorious set just because that was a pain in the butt to get. And I was like, if I need it for some reason at some point, it still sits there. So I have those, which have the old perks on them, which at some point probably won't even function, but for now they do. So yeah, those types of things. It's nice to just kind of get sometimes they just need to nudge you a couple steps down to keep moving forward, because otherwise we're just going to cling to the top step and be like, no, not going away.
Yep. Well, it's a good discussion. I'm sure we will all be talking about it more, especially details coming down the road. But let's move on to at least spend a little bit of time of what is coming up for this next season. First thing I want to talk about, because this is such a fun topic, and I was thinking about this more, is like, maybe they meant to like make this a dramatic thing, or maybe they didn't, they just got lucky, but I think it's brilliant how it's turning out. What do we think about this Titan armor from the Eververse set? Sin, I have to ask you first. I know you guys have talked about Ebontis a little bit, but you know which one I'm talking about, Sin?
Yeah, and I was actually quite excited when Ebontis started off saying that he was a crown eater. So that made me quite happy. Titans Unite. And
but you know which armor I'm talking about?
Yes, the meme-worthy one that now I've seen 10 million memes on all over Twitter. I've seen it even in Facebook feeds now. I'm kind of surprised they would put that out there, to be honest with you. It looks a little awkward, and it's not my cup of tea. And maybe they're trolling us with the whole crown eating thing, but I don't know. Not for me, though.
Not for you, dog, huh?
It's a no for me, dog.
Honestly, would that be your main set you're going to be
yeah, I'm totally going to be walking around with the Goodwill set for sure, 100%. No, I think it was half of the Titans out there were like, oh, look at the hunter. Wait, that's ours? Like, that was the thought process I went through, because like, there's no way that's the thin. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. That's the Titan? I was so confused. It did not seem like it fit. And I don't know. It's one of the weirdest ones. I know they've literally put out on Twitter that, hey, they shaded it up. In my opinion, none of the shaders look good on it either. It is not my jam. The other two, I mean, you've got like, I've seen it. There's so many memes about it. I mean, you've got like Gucci, you've got Nike, and then you've got Goodwill. You've got like the suave guy who's like president of the class. You've got the jock, and you've got the chest nerd. Like, I don't know how many different ways like you can meme a set of armor, but it's living up to all of them. So no, I will be folding hardcore on that one. Hard pass.
But here's the thing: and again, they might not have meant it this way, but this has been great discussion point. You know, you get whenever people talk about things, good or bad, it sure makes it interesting. And this has been a crazy discussion point, because yeah, like I'm looking at the Warlock armor where I'm like, yeah, finally something. I mean, maybe it's a little flashy, a little like 70s like pimp style, but I'm going to be rocking it. I think finally there's one that doesn't look so much like a dress. I'm a Warlock main, by the way. Nice. And the Hunter one, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I guess I thought it was a Titan at first also. It does look like the very like jock bomber jacket, Letterman jacket type situation. The Titan, yeah, goofy. But DMG really ran with this, and they're kind of leaning into it some. I don't know if they're just trying to say like, yeah, guys, it's actually not as bad as you think. Or maybe they're just like, yeah, it is kind of funny, but look what you can do with it. But, you know, he showed some people put some shaders on it. I do think, yes, it's still not the best set, but the one second from the left, that's kind of like the white, looks okay. And it's also partially the angle. The angle they showed in the original shot was just the goofiest angle. At least with this angle, it's a little bit better. Honestly, I think probably one of the biggest problems is the ratio of the helmet next to how big the collar opens. It doesn't seem like it matches, if that makes sense. It's like it's too much of a neck opening. Or
it's like a really deep neckline, and then he's still got a yellow or an orange turtleneck on underneath, a very deep necked coat. And I'm like, who made this? Like, I don't know who it was designed for. A gorilla, and then he's got a skin suit on underneath. There's so many weird things. I can bash that one all day long. It's rough.
Yeah, I'm trying to like, okay, no, I agree, but I'm just trying to be like, show the other side too. There, also DMG reposted someone who drew like a picture of what like maybe a female Titan would look like, with the helmet off and with the armor. I'm like, okay, yeah, female Titan, it looks pretty cool, but maybe just find a different helmet that just doesn't match. It's still maybe not the best quote armor also, but it's the armor with the helmet, and especially those goofy shaders that they just did that on that first shot. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, most of the time, if your wife is like, "Hey, do I look cool?" You're like, "Yeah, absolutely." And this is one of those rare moments. So you'd be like, like you finally have to call them out and be like, "I don't think so. I don't know if that's yours today. I don't know if you're pulling it off."
Are you sure you want to wear that?
Yeah,
I love all the comments people were saying. A couple that I had was like, "Hey, Dad, do I look like a Titan yet? Or can I play with you guys?" Like the older brothers, no, stop bugging us.
so much bad. So
yeah, so that was a very fun piece of news. But we did get a lot in our TWAB sent. I don't know if you had a chance to look over it at all yet. We can give you the cliff notes.
I briefly glanced through it, and just from a little bit from listening to different podcasts the past few days, but I'll let you run through it.
Okay. I wanted to talk about a couple things, and maybe what some of these activities will look like going forward. But one of the most interesting things to me anyways is the power level increase. And I find it interesting, especially since this last season, they only raised it by 10, why we are raising 40 this time around. I have some guesses. I want to hear what Ebontis thinks, but I mean, obviously the Grandmaster Nightfall could be kind of right around that 1,010 range, but what else really, what we can only assume that the regular Master Nightfalls are staying at 980. Do we think and hope that there'll be some, what if there is a raid coming this season or something else big, why we need to be to 1,010? What do you think, Ebontis?
Didn't even think about the raid part. I don't expect it. That would be quite the shocker, I think, for a lot of people. I think between Trials and Grandmaster and the Seraph stuff is probably what they've got bandwidth for at this point. No, the power level, honestly,
do you think it's more? I mean, but why so much this season if that's just the few things? It's just because they want people on Trials something to grind for? The PvE,
I think it's a combination. Like, for one, it pushes the kind of free account cheaters having to get higher to really compete. I mean, if you're going to cheat in Trials, yeah, you're probably still going to, hit all your shots. But if you're 50 levels below just because you don't play like a normal person, then that's still probably going to be substantially harder for you to cheat without actually putting some time in. So some of it, I'm guessing, is Trials. I also think probably just some of the feedback over the 10 bump. And they're like, if you're doing it again, because this is one of my more casual seasons, because I'm like, well, if it only goes up by 10, do I really need to raid, or do I really need to go run these dungeons or master activities? Because I know next season, I'll just get that 10, and yeah, I'll be 10 behind, but the next season, I'll get it so much easier. Do I really want to go through the painstaking effort of the tough activities, or do I want to wait for the next season and have it in a week? So that was some of the mentality for me, why at least this way gives a little more life to, your weekly bounties and your powerful gear and stuff like that. Especially if you have 3 characters, it's going to give longer life to the basic stuff. So for me, I see it as a positive for those types of things. But I wanted to ask you guys, from somebody who is truly a raider, a hardcore, Glad, Sweatcicle, they're going to be top level and do all the pinnacles, run 3 raids on all 3 characters, do all of that stuff. And they get to go through the hard effort of being, top hardcore pinnacles. Does a bump of 40 that completely and absolutely nullifies the pinnacles next season? How do you guys feel that's going to roll for them? Because 10 and 10, at least, hey, if they got the pinnacle, they instantly jump in being 10 levels ahead if you did grind the pinnacles. Now, even if they did the pinnacles, I'm going to catch them in about 6 hours. And that's it. Whatever powerfuls get me there, and then I'm good to go again. So I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts of the pinnacles kind of devaluing, and there's even more pinnacle top later on in the TWAB. The pinnacle changes, kind of devaluing some of those harder activities. I was curious your guys' thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I said the exact same thing at the end of last season on the podcast. I was like, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. when we weren't sure if they were going to like raise by 50 for this last season or not raise at all. And interestingly enough, they kind of took a middle of the road approach with only going 10 up. But yeah, I mean, I've been talking to people this season that have been like, doing 980 nightfalls and like, oh, you're just trying to get some, some more golf balls. Like, oh, we're also going for the pinnacle power. I'm like, oh, really? Not so much worth it, in my opinion, this late in the season, if you're mostly just doing it for the power level. So very good point on that. And also what you said about just having it is still, it seems like they don't know what to do. Want to raise power level a lot or not? Because last season they didn't. This season they are. But I generally more would err on the side of raising power level, because it does give people something else to go for. Even if there's not a lot of PvE activities, which I was, there probably won't be a raid, but I would still hope maybe we can get a hard mode of the raids or a featured raid, like what you guys have said in the past. Maybe they'll do something like that this season. Probably not, but hopefully. I have reasons then more to grind for it. Sin, what do you think?
I do hope they're bringing a raid this time around. It would be nice. I think it's due for it. The power level increase could indicate that, but it also could be just the fact for trials. And they did say, I think we mentioned, right, they're disabling the artifact for the trials or power-enabled PvP activities. So maybe having the bump in overall power out of the gate gives people reason to grind for trials this season. I don't know. I don't much care about it either way, because I'm going to get to the power level that I need for whatever activities I'm going to do. And, past the pinnacle part itself, getting to the 1,000 power level before you get to the pinnacle grind, I think it'll be easy.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. I don't know if that kind of answered what your question, Ebontis, but I have so many different thoughts about it. It's hard to kind of narrow it down.
Yeah, I mean, it's more getting to 1,000, I think, will help trials, kind of give you a little more incentive to be active playing and doing your powerfuls. If you really want to continue to play trials, consistently, it's probably going to be more people playing longer, because I felt casual. I feel like a lot of people have felt pretty casual and still be able to do what I need to do this season. So there hasn't been much incentive to really play a ton and still be able to do most of what the season has to offer. So this is going to give you more incentive to go play strikes and gambit and crucible matches to get a lot of your basic things out of the way to continue to boost that level at least longer. Hopefully that'll help some of the population bases. I just don't know. I'm not a hardcore raider. Used to do it a lot more, just don't have a good solid group to do it with. But if I was a hardcore raider, I mean, with the +2 boost on pinnacles, and we can kind of bring up the other end of the TWAB if you want as well, as they're thinking about adding pinnacles now to about halfway through the season when Grandmaster launches, because that timing seems fitting. When they mentioned the pinnacles coming for Gambit weekly challenges and Crucible weekly challenges and Vanguard weekly challenges, I mean, that's either going to be like do 3 strikes, complete 3 matches or whatever, or go do your 8 bounties. I don't know where they're going to place it. Where, again, that the feeling of like pinnacle gear, I can go do 3 matches in Gambit and lose or otherwise, or I have to go get 6 people together and go do these crazy mechanics in a raid, and that nets me the same gear. And again, different mentality. Person who has like 2 hours to play versus somebody who lives in the game, obviously going to think different about that one. I was just curious what you guys think on that piece.
Now, was it you all that said in your last podcast, if I remember correctly, having the different power levels, is that something that is for sure happening, where raids and trials are like a +2 versus the nightfalls and strikes or gambits all +1? Or is that just a theory?
That was a theory, or at least a way I think they could keep the value in those types of things. I think Babazard actually said it was perfect when he did. I was like, that makes total sense. Like an easy pinnacle, yeah, you get a +1, kind of work on it slowly. You go do a raid or, a dungeon, maybe that's a +2. Like, because right now, if everything stays as +2, it definitely changes the value. So yeah, that was not anything concrete, but actually sounds like it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm curious if they'll actually do something like that, because that would be a great way to keep the value of the higher pinnacle activities while slightly increasing the value of the other weekly ritual activities like the gambits and the crucible matches, giving people reason to play them without devaluing the raids and trials.
Well, for me, unless they're going to be, again, they probably nothing's happening here, but even less chance a new raid or a slightly better chance they make the current raid or raids harder or have some weekly feature. Like, that's my main end game activity. And then probably my second would be the Nightfalls. I'm not as much of a PvP player or Trials player. So to me, having a power level at 1,000 and then a pinnacle at 10 more, the pinnacle thing kind of just bores me. I'm like, well, unless I hear there's some, super awesome reason to run the Grandmaster Nightfalls, I'm not going to care about getting those extra 10 pinnacles, especially if there's more sources now. Gambit Strike. That's kind of boring. I don't know. I guess I'll run into it, but I don't have a super incentive to. The very first season of this year, Shadowkeep, there was more reasons for me to go for that plus 10 pinnacle because it would help me immensely in the raid and immensely in the Nightfalls. But now I'm noticing more this season and probably even more the next season until we find out more what's going on. I just don't have a reason to run for the pinnacle, especially since I'm not going to be trying to be an Iron Band or why do I keep saying Iron Band? Trials, try hard,
Yeah, so that was covering my question. So it's just going to kind of be a wait and see, but I think they do have to consider the value of the hardcore player for the gear that drops for them. So that's just one of those things they can't forget about.
Yeah, and loot, what do we? That's a whole discussion too. What can we even guess will be reasons for running these Grandmaster Nightfalls? We already get, Ascendant shards from the, not maybe every single time, but what else can they add that would make it so that these Grandmaster Nightfalls are worth running?
Did you guys have any ideas?
I don't really. That's why I'm kind of I'm kind of at a loss myself. You could say, some more new weapons, I guess. It's a tough one.
There really isn't any reason that I could think of to really run them unless they pack away into the loot pool something that would drive most people to go in there. I love emotes, and without having to go to Eververse,
there you go.
If they do something like a cool emote or something, it doesn't even have to be the most amazing thing in the world, but something that I could use occasionally, and I don't have to spend 1,000 silver on it, but I just gotta bust my rear end to go get it out of a 980. Then yeah, I'm going to go find a group and I'm going to do that because I want it, and it doesn't cost me anything other than my time and a little bit of fun to do it. Yep. I think that would be a good reason. Or if they came up with some weapon that's crazy hard to get and you got to go through a 980 to get it, yeah, maybe that could be a way to bring relevance to it.
I've been wondering the same thing in my head because being a Nightfall guy, I sit there and I look at the 980s and yeah, our level's getting up there a little more, so they're not quite as daunting as they were. But still, you look at 8 modifiers and they're all negative. And I'm just like, okay, so Masters 980, 8 things working against me, luck loadout, more champions, every mob dies into a pool of fire that's on the floor, and if a boss does push you back, they're going to push you harder and faster and more damage. And I'm just like, that's already there. What else are you going to do to me just to make these things either harder? And that's where I get to the point of it's got to be a point to where it's not just unfun. And right. I don't know if you add 4 more modifiers on there and they all still suck. Do I even want to do that? And then the other side of that coin is okay, so if you make it really hard and you put some cool loot back there, are you telling me you're finally going to put strike exclusive behind this ridiculous 1020 power level Nightfall ordeal with 12 modifiers? And some people are finally you give a strike exclusive loot and you're going to make me blow my brains out to get it. Somewhere I don't, and that's where I was I've really got to see what they do with these things because I'm very, very curious because I don't know what the loot can be. If you do strike exclusives, I loved in Destiny 1 when you go kill the Fallen Saber and you get him as a hat, and I'm you get him and you wear him as a helmet, or the Darkblade's still my favorite helm for the Titan. That thing looked amazing.
Yeah, and those were in the strikes. They weren't. Yeah, they're not in this 1020 level Grandmaster. Yeah.
So, the strike exclusive loot not being in the game, I think has really hurt the strikes a lot, especially as the newer ones, they haven't even put anything in for those. Broodhold and Scarlet Keep don't even have strike exclusive, so when they come up for a Nightfall, you're there's less of a reason to even grind. You do your one and then you're done, but there's no exclusive in even the new ones. So I'm going, I'm really confused on what there's going to be. And the reward wise, do you need 2 golf balls instead of 1? Do you always get an exotic, but it's still just an RNG roll? I don't know what it can change except a seal. And I don't know. This one has me scratching my head in so many ways. I wish I could see like the Bungie whiteboard about all this stuff, because I can't figure it out in my head. I don't know. So
exactly how I'm feeling. In some ways, I'm super concerned about what might be coming up. And in other ways, I'm also, we don't know everything yet. And it seems like we definitely know they're holding more back from us this coming season than what we knew up front last season. So I'm just hoping there's like just some cool bombs that are dropped upon us, on at least as far as, okay, these are the reasons why you're running these we couldn't even imagine, or maybe it is some good loot and they're not that bad. So that's what I'm hoping for anyways. Well, we'll see when it comes up. We already know the roadmap of what they're showing us this time around seems like a little less information than from the previous time. We don't know what the exotic quest is for which exotic weapon, right?
Yep.
We can only speculate on that. We can only speculate on some other things. I'm really intrigued on some of these PvE activities, what they will be. And I'm happy to hear that it's a little more nuanced than what we first thought. There was some clarification going around that 3 separate things. There's the Seraph Towers, the Seraph Bunkers, and then the legendary Lost Sectors. Now, the Seraph Towers and the Seraph Bunkers, they're part of the free-to-play grouping, so anyone can go into those. So my guess, I don't know what you think, but wouldn't that make sense to have those more like a public event, like anyone can go into them? It's probably not going to be like a match-made activity.
Maybe it seems like the tower for sure is going to be like a public event, as it seems to be pretty open in spaces. At least the video showed like a tiny clip on the moon that's like, well, if you're on the surface of the moon, that's a pretty public space. So I don't think those will be hidden away.
Yeah, maybe kind of like an EPS type thing where people can just move over to it and work on it. Who knows with the bunkers, but maybe also too. Now I saw there's a couple images of where they show openings to, I'm assuming these are the bunkers. I guess they could be the legendary Lost Sectors, but one shows on the moon, kind of close to the spawn point off to the left. And you can see an opening into the ground. And I believe actually the title underneath the picture did say it was a Seraph Bunker. So that'll be interesting that looks also like you just drop into it. Obviously probably an instant space, but who knows if it's going to be match made. But then with the legendary Lost Sectors, with this being part of the season pass, maybe that could be a match made activity. That'll be hard to know too. Like, what are these legendary Lost Sectors? I mean, are they the regular Lost Sectors just ramped up, or are we getting something totally new? Is it match made? Is it not? I kind of would like one small match made activity. So maybe we can add that and see how it goes there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on that one. That's it. There seems to be a decent amount out there. I mean, it sounds like if you go 2 weeks, like March 10th seems like EDZ for the bunker and Lost Sectors. March 24th, the moon. April 7th, IO. After that, no idea. So it sounds like you got it seems like we've got activities for the early part of the season, and then the rest of it is Guardian games and then a giant question mark. So I am kind of curious how things end up falling. What's match made, as you said. I didn't even think about matchmaking, actually, if Lost Sectors are going to have those or if the bunkers, if either has matchmaking. I don't actually know.
Yeah, it's just fun to speculate, I feel like. And I think it's interesting, too. 2 of them are part of the free-to-play, and one of them is part of the season pass. So you can see with that. And then, of course, we also get, what do they call it? Warmind weeklies, or what do they call those? Sorry, I'm blanking on that here.
Wrath of the Machine is coming back. I heard it here.
Totally. Right, Sin? That'd be fun. Rasputin bounties, is that what it's called, or Rasputin challenges?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. What do they call it? Weekly Rasputin challenges. So
yeah, that could be just stupid basic things, but I hope that it's something almost like a fourth element on top. Like, okay, to prove that we're worthy this week, we need to get this and this done, and it's a fair challenge or a fairly lengthy bounty, and maybe they can repeat again, right? But for those that are getting those done each week, we get some awesome drop, or we get to progress in the story.
Yeah, and those could even be just like the what am I thinking of? The Eris memories. They could do something like that to progress the story too. So again, a lot of wait and see, but they've got some hidden nuggets in here. I'm hoping that pay off decently. May not be like epic, but hoping a decent payoff is there.
Do you hope or think, we see that we at least will have a cutscene about, do you think we'll have some story missions, kind of like how we had with the Saint 14 story missions?
I've got to hope so, because those are always really enjoyable. Like, the Saint 14's one set a bar really high. Like, those were damn good. So, especially the second one, saving him, and you got the tease of, like, the Trials call-outs, and everybody was like, oh, he's going to call Trials. I don't know if you can go quite to his level, because Saint 14 is such a famed character. As we're saving him, it feels very epic. So on this one, unless, like, Rasputin screaming at you and, like, crazy robot Russian, I don't know if they're going to hit as well, but I would like to see at least a couple, something to move the story besides a weekly bounty or something. I'd like a little more, so we'll see.
Yeah, I hope there's stories. It's funny, like these Saint 14 story missions, a lot of people knew about them, but they didn't understand exactly what they were, how cool they were, and we had to kind of push people to run them sometimes too. Like, oh, be sure you get those done because they're actually some of the best content of this season, something to do. And they're like, oh, yeah, they were cool. And I even noticed early on too that they would ramp up in difficulty depending on how many people you're playing with. Because I played it solo the first time, and then I played it again with Sin. And then I think the second mission I went in with the 3-stack, and I noticed that I forget what it was, if it was more yellow bars or what, but they actually did ramp up, which I really appreciated. Like, oh, that's some smart thinking that Bungie did there.
Nice. All right. Sin, I was like, Sin, I feel like I've talked over you, so I apologize about that.
Yeah, no, you're quite fine.
I'm just looking at the roadmap here, but
yeah, that's exactly. You guys are talking. I'm going through, and I'm just skimming over all the information that I've been missing out on covering and keeping up with. But I think you're right, Kingsley, because you jumped in with me on that mission, and it definitely seemed a little beefy when you and I were running that mission together.
Yeah, it was not hard per se, but a little tanky, like taking everything down, and gave us enjoy being in the mission for opposed to just like, oh, we melted them with 2 Nova bombs or something. We actually were in there for a bit, so it seemed meaningful.
Right.
Yeah, I think I did that solo, so I didn't know it actually got harder, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's these little things that I almost wish that they would tell us more of, because then people could be like, oh, maybe I would actually want to run it with someone else to make it a different experience. And you can't really go back and do those, right, unless you bring another character through or you're running them with someone who is at that step. Same thing.
Yeah, there's quite a few like one-shot experiences in this game that I wouldn't mind just being able, even just to goof around. Like if I want to go play the mission where I get my powers back when I level up in the story, just to have like the fun of like, hey, here's an infinite number of hammers and you just go to town. And I was like, those are just fun, even just to show somebody what that looks like. If you had like a 4K monitor and like crazy refresh rate and you just like, what's going to look the coolest? That would be like the first thing I go to. So you got powers, particle effects, crazy stuff going on. I mean, that would just be an easy thing and you'll never get to play it again. And I'm just like, kind of sucks that some of that stuff is just hidden away after it's used one time.
Very true. Yeah, those are always like when I hear someone running through something that, oh yeah, I'll run through that with you, because I got to experience that once or twice, but it's been a while. We don't probably need to go through all the exotic changes for all the classes, but I do want to hear, Ebontis, what you think would be the most interesting with the Titan set, since you're a Titan main. I want to talk about the Warlock while we're thinking about that. Of this one could be a huge outlier, as you probably know, the Sanguine Alchemy. Doesn't that seem like, we don't know how awesome this will be, but this could be super awesome. You're standing in a rift, and it will pause the duration of the rift if you're getting weapon kills.
Yeah, I was like previously. So I was just going to say previously, it seemed like more of a PvP one to see through walls, but this thing's got potential in PvE to just start melting stuff. You put an empowering rift down, scout rifle at range, whole bunch of low level stuff. Yeah, I think you'd be cooking for a while there. This is hope. Definitely
something we're going to be, us Warlocks are going to be trying right away. I don't assume this would also work on the Well of Radiance. That'd be super OP if it could do that.
Oh, that'd be terrifying.
I know, right? Now, I had a mini discussion with some other people about this. They say rifts, and we do know that when you place a rift, the wording above your super says rift versus when you place a well of radiance, it says well of radiance. However, you could use a different logic that when you're using the Lunafaction boots, they increase reload on any rift. They just say rift, and in this case, it also works on a well. So that would be way crazy.
There will be some testing going on. It sounds like that. I didn't even think about Well of Radiance. That'll change some things. You would think they would test it for that because they're so afraid of wells being too powerful. Or, the Hunter's got a shot in the foot again for Orpheus Rig. There's certain things they tend to have a pretty close eye on, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Now I really want to know.
I'm guessing not. We can't assume that, but boy, I'm going to definitely test that right away. And even in the Rift situation, it's going to be a nice thing to have. At least I assume in certain, circumstances. Imagine, again, 2 or 3 warlocks and some, heroic level activity, just dropping normal rifts and everyone standing in them across the map, and they're actually extending almost indefinitely because we're shooting ads. So that can definitely make things help. On the Titan changes, anything that really stands out to you? We don't have to go through all of them. If you want, we can. But what are you most excited for or worried about?
Even as a Titan, I'm happy to see One-Eyed Mask kind of get kicked down a few pegs, if not more. One-Eyed Mask is just too powerful. It really is. It's been standout. You're not going to see through walls. You're not going to be able to get the bonus damage. The Overshield still is probably going to give it some value, even though it's a little shorter. But generally, it's been too strong for too long. Again, I'm okay with the retiring stuff. Same thing. It's had its heyday for way too long. Kind of curious to see that one to go away. A couple that I was looking at really were the Dune Marchers. 20 meters is a really, really long range for that static charge. So that one might be quite annoying. If you can punch somebody and 20 meters away, you can actually electrify the next person. Whip out a shotgun, hit them with half damage and they die. Or in PvE, 20 meters that you're going to change to a lot of stuff. And the Mark 44 standout sides, I'm sorry, but more people are going to be shoulder charging now. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, that's insane. The 20 meter increase up from 12 on the Dune Marchers.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of the One-Eyed Mask. Being a Titan myself, I haven't used it in Crucible in probably a year. Is that about how long it's been out? A little over a year. Yeah. And one, it's just a laziness factor of having to change my armor all the time. I change it with my weapons. I very rarely ever change my armor. 2, I don't ever really need it. 1, I'm not good enough to where that's going to make the difference of whether or not I'm going to win a battle or not. Most of the time, it's just knowing my encounters is going to help me win my battle in PvP. So I'm okay with that one. And I do agree that the 20 meters on the Dune Marchers is definitely something that's going to be very interesting to see.
You'll have to test that out. We will see. On the Hunter, I don't know as much about the Hunters, but that is going to be crazy about the Orpheus rigs. Makes me a little sad. And again, some of these things where we could use them in Nightfalls or raids, that's just kind of getting nerfed down some more. But I guess whatever. Okay, so we went in, and you were in the party, Sin, but we were running D1 raids a couple nights ago, and it is a night and day difference with the current meta on how quickly you can get your supers back in PvE, probably even PvP too, but in D1, we were doing what I would call the 1-2 combo of Hunter throwing Tether, and then I was following up with a Nova Bomb, and we were instantly just regenning, both our supers back and forth in the Vault of Glass. in that middle area right there. And I can see that is too far on the one side.
Right.
But I was fine with all these nerfs that they've made, but I'm kind of thinking we're almost a little too far on the other side now. There's a lot of activities I go into. I'm like, I don't have my super yet, so I'm kind of hoping we can maybe consider bringing it back the other way a little bit.
Yeah, the one I would watch is Kepri Sting. Smoke bombs dealing 150% damage. I could see that being rough. So just something I have a hunch there's going to be a few more smoke bombs thrown around, because if you get tagged by one of those, it's going to sting a lot.
I could see that too. Yeah. That's probably going to be a big one. Well, let's just go into our grab bag section. I mean, the other topic to bring up as we kind of like finish on this week's TWAB and our main discussion. We could go for hours with some of these changes, but I just kind of wanted to get, I really wanted to talk about the weapons, potential changes, and then briefly what we're looking forward to. But I'm really excited about this season. I'm going to be hopping on, seeing what it's like, and hopefully we'll have a lot of good things to report come Tuesday. So,
yeah, I'm excited for it. I did see, scrolling through, again, all the list of stuff that I've been catching up on, that Paul Tassi had an article about, and this could be more along the lines of, not really a spoiler, but a theory of Aldrin maybe making an appearance in this coming season. Did you all read that?
yes.
Oh yeah, read it, talked about it. Yeah, it's intriguing, and I think, as you guys have said too, the dangling storylines out there, I kind of want them to take at least one of those and keep moving them forward. He had another article about the pyramid ships. He's like, if the pyramid ships don't get here in year 6 of all of the Destiny franchise, like, how much longer are we going to wait? So right. I agree. Like, if Aldrin's sitting out there and they're going to tease this whoever sitting in a helmet in front of the camera in the city where nobody else has their helmet on, and he even said it well in the article. He's like, nobody else has their helmet on in the tower except Shaxx. No one. So it's like, why would this person? So yeah, that would be great. And I think it ties into the whole worthy we joked about. You've got, are we worthy to Rasputin? Is Aldrin worthy to be the Vanguard? Are we worthy to be flawless in trials? There's a lot of themes that go with worthy, and all of them seem to fit. So any of them seem possible at this point.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I hope they do some more storyline too. I mean, we don't need to talk about the pyramid ship thing right now. Hopefully more will come at least by the next big year of Destiny. Well, anything else, Ebontis, that's on your mind this week or excited for coming up in the game?
I mean, I think just kind of very curious. Yeah, I was like, we went through most of it. I think it's just going to be kind of an intriguing season. I think we've got a couple unique things in different places. You know, Lost Sector is getting maybe a reskin. Maybe there's champions sitting in there. Who knows? The public event spaces might get used a little more, because it was the nice thing about the moon, having the Vex public events have some value. More people would be patrolling that area, and hopefully this will give some life to the patrols outside of your basic stuff that you need to do. And just very curious about the story to see, of all the threads, as we're talking about Aldrin and Rasputin and Zavala and Annabray, or Annabay for some, all of those
yes.
pieces.
She's Bay.
Yeah, so all of those pieces seem like they've got potential to really keep this narrative going forward. I mean, he talked about in the director's cut having narrative momentum, using his terminology. Seems like they're setting up a lot of potential for that this season. So I think the activity should be fun. We know there's going to be weapons. I'm still scratching my head over Grandmaster Nightfall's Guardian games. Those sound actually cool. No clue, but it's got potential to be fun. But I think the narrative over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, especially going into September, really has me curious where they take it, because they've got potential. Just can they deliver?
That's totally true. I'm very optimistic these days, but it's always a caution. We will definitely be continuing this discussion. I'm interested to see what you think about in your podcast also, and your videos and Twitter tweets, and we'll continue this also. It'll be fun to see where these Grandmaster Nightfalls go, and we'll definitely have to follow up on that down the road for sure. Well, boy, it's been such a pleasure having you on today on our podcast.
But there is one very important question that's coming.
I was going to get there. Yeah.
always the little thorn in the side. You're not quite done.
You're not quite done.
Got that special question.
I could mix it up and confuse in. What's your favorite car model, Ebontis?
That is not
model.
No.
I mean, I'll answer the question. For me, it's the Corvette. For years and years, it's been a Corvette. I mean, I love McLarens and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff, but I had a Corvette, so I'm biased. But as it continues to evolve, like, I had a C6 05, and the C7 got better, and it's always like, can they? And I fell in love with like it was the 2000. Oh, what was it? It was the C5 Z06. And I was like, what that car was capable of, 400 horsepower for the price. And I've loved Corvettes since. I mean, I've loved every car. I'm a car guy on top of many other weird ass hobbies. But yeah, Corvette is one that I've always been very attached to for a long time now.
Hey, I'm glad I asked now. No, that's excellent. I'm looking up some of the pictures here of the C5.
Yeah, the C8 is gorgeous.
C8, yeah. No, that is awesome here.
What was the actual question? Since apparently that wasn't it.
Not as important as this one. Not as interesting. No, it can still be interesting. What we like to ask people: what is your favorite dessert?
Oh God, this is a loaded question for me. That's a problem. I have a huge sweet tooth, so it depends on mood, wants. I mean, I can go anywhere from like candy bar. A really fresh Butterfinger is good. I love Sour Patch Kids if I'm going like gummy candy.
Wait, a fresh Butterfinger? Like you make it your own, or just not?
No, like just like that was like the ones that crumble, because there's some that just snap and you're like breaking them on your teeth. And there's ones that just like crumble apart in your mouth. Just a fresh, like a proper Butterfinger is probably a better way to phrase it.
Truth, yeah.
Reese's are always good. No, dessert's trouble. Like I make cheesecake though. I've actually got to the point where I've been making my own cheesecake for years. So I'm a little biased sometimes when I'm like, hey, some of like my Reese's peanut butter swirled chocolate ganache covered cheesecake that I make, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good too. No, I could go to town on desserts. It's not even funny how many desserts I like. What are your guys? And then I'll see if I'm even like close to some of those too.
Good company with the cheesecake. That has been a common answer on the show, and it's definitely one of my favorites. I go between cheesecake and carrot cake and pineapple upside down.
You lost me. No carrot cake.
Pineapple.
Pineapple upside down. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
I don't really ever crave that one. I probably haven't had it in forever though. I might appreciate it more,
like old school. But I definitely cheesecake. There was a cheesecake pineapple upside down version that I had recently. It was cheesecake with the pineapple on top.
That's a combination,
but it was pretty good. Yeah.
Nice.
And Sin, you're kind of like, well, go ahead.
I was going to say I was snacking on Twizzlers while you guys were talking, so I had the candy right at my desk. So
there are. So when it comes to like, okay, I've tried way too many candies. So yeah, I have to work out a lot to try and maintain some level of non-fatness. No, when it comes to licorice, like Twizzlers don't do it for me anymore. Good Australian licorice, especially like raspberry flavored. Those, if I can find, are the way to go. Like there are levels of licorice, and Twizzlers don't even remotely cut it anymore. So there are much better licorice. If you want to know, let me know, and I can send you a link to about a pound or 2 pound bag on Amazon. They're better. They're like, some are a little chewier, some are a little softer. So everybody has their tastes, but no, good red Australian licorice is pretty solid.
You need to slide those into my DMs.
That's not hard to do.
We'll start a licorice co-op where we send it back and forth to everyone.
Now, the proper desserts that I go for is tiramisu. That is my go-to. Yes,
with your rum on the side, right?
rum in particular, especially. Now I'm out of my bamboo, so I'm
oh no! What will you do?
That's why I got the bourbon out.
Panic! Sin's about to die. He's out of his bamboo. Oh man!
I'm getting a theme for your choices of things, but that's totally fine.
Right.
No, yeah, it's like cheesecake can be good. I'm trying to think of anything else. I love a really good also either apple or cherry, not pumpkin. Not a big fan of that anymore. I won't hate it, but don't love it. A Dutch apple crumb apple or cherry pie as well. And then key lime pie. Oh God, I almost forgot. Key lime pie is really high up there too. Good key lime pie.
That can be good too. Yes.
Yeah.
See, we always talk about this and then we get hungry. Okay,
you're killing me here. Come on.
I know. We need to create a Guardian Hub dessert cookbook one of these days and just have like a list of everyone's.
That's one of those things that's on that to-do list that we just never find enough time to do.
Oh, there's never enough time. That's the truth.
Yep. Well, we at least have enough time to podcast. And again, we really want to thank you for coming on today. Ebontis, thank you so much.
It has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy talking about Destiny and appreciate the honor of just even being invited to anybody's podcast that you would even think of me. So thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you. Thank you.
We don't have any housekeeping this week, Sin, so we'll just get on to our closing pleasantries. So we'll start with you, Ebontis. Just kind of give all your tags for your channel and your Twitter if you want, and how people can get hold of you.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. It's Ebontis, Ebontis. If you find a cheetah that seems to match that name, you've probably found me, whether it be Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I don't use that much. There's a Patreon out there. All of those things, if you trip over my name and the cheetah's there, you've probably found me. So probably playing a lot of Destiny. It's usually my go-to, but, playing games like Neo or Dark Souls or Gardevoir or who knows. There's so many. I want to sit there and play like Breath of the Wild for 100 hours in a closet somewhere just so I can just focus on that game, but I never get enough time. So come find me, come check out what I'm playing. Always welcome. And obviously listen to what these two say and come hang out with these two because these two are awesome. So you guys are next.
Thank you. Yeah. Sin, where can the lovely listeners get a hold of you?
They can find me all across the web or just on Twitter at Sin_media. Sin is CYN, and over on twitch.tv/Sin Media. Kingsley, let's do it.
Yes, you can find me as Kingsley Mac on PlayStation, on PC, and on Twitch, where I stream occasionally, mostly from Raid. On Twitter, though, I am MC Kingsley. And you can find our show, The Guardian Hub, at our website, theguardianhub.com, and also on Twitter as The Guardian Hub. As Sin would say, the best hub on the net.
Definitely the best hub.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening again. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope you had a enjoyable time with our guest this evening. And we will talk to you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Felicia.
Oh, I should have asked. Where'd you come up with the idea of a cheetah?
It's my favorite animal, actually.
Okay.
That one's easy. I know more about cheetahs than I probably should. I've watched like documentaries and videos and slow-mo shots of a cheetah running quite a bit. So no, cheetahs are just favorite animal.
So you're saying you're as fast as a cheetah?
Hell no.
I like what you said about you're like, yeah, I like to get all the I like to do the hard stuff, but not a speedrunner. That's me too. I like to get stuff done in the game, the hard stuff, but and then I see these speedrunners and they're like, put me to shame. They're like,
oh, it's even old games just because I've been gaming for so long. You see some people run, whether it be like Mario 64 or who knows what, and you're just like, how in the hell is all that possible? So no, that stuff's impressive.